Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Donna took a deep breath. She squared her shoulders, brushed a threatening tear from her eyes, and reached deep inside herself for a reservoir of power she never knew she had. With her head held high, despite the guilt and pain in her heart, she opened the door and went inside. When she entered his office, her husband looked up from his desk. His obvious joy at seeing her made her stop. He was a handsome man, not like Gil, like a movie star, but still incredibly handsome. He also had something that Gil didn't have, a character. These traits, combined with the love he had for her and their children, made him far more desirable than any man she had ever met. Except for one slip. One slip, and now everything had to change. Those she loved will suffer. Her marriage was destroyed by her own hand, and her family was in danger of breaking up. "What was I thinking?" she whispered. "Of course I wasn't me." With a calmness that belied the hurricane of emotions raging inside her, she turned to her husband. She was determined not to cry, knowing that he couldn't bear to see her tears, and it could confuse an already difficult-to-explain situation. She needs to be open and honest with him, not manipulate his feelings. "Honey, we need to talk. It wasn't original, but it was a start. I need to tell you something that will hurt you and make you very angry. First of all, I have to ask you to please me. I need you to give me your gun that you keep in your desk." "A gun?" She nodded and took a deep breath. Steve leaned back in his chair, his surprised look obvious. He slowly unlocked a drawer and took out a huge pistol. Without taking his eyes off her, he handed her his Smith & Wesson Model 29.44 Magnum. She paled for a moment before taking it from him. He had already told her what it was called several times, but she could never remember, so they usually just called him a cannon. She stared at him as if he were a snake just waiting to pounce. She had forgotten how big and heavy it was when she tried to squeeze it into her huge purse. "Now, could you tell me," her husband said in a low, wary voice, "what could be so bad that you're afraid I might shoot someone with this thing?" She looked at him, studying his face. His concern was obvious. It was mixed with love and something else. Fear. He tried to hide it, but it was in his voice. "It's me. I'm sorry, Steve," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But it could be. I wish there was another way to say this, but I cheated on you." She almost choked on those words, and the nausea in her stomach made her stop. She knew that the pain she was experiencing couldn't compare to the incredible pain she saw in her husband's eyes. She watched his heart break. His eyes filled with tears and his jaw clenched, then his face slowly lost all expression, as if turned to stone. She prayed that the death she witnessed was only his trust in her, not his love. "When?" he croaked. "And more importantly, why? Last weekend at Gil's party. As for the why, I'm not really sure. I know that's not the answer we both want to hear, but it's the most honest one." An eerie silence filled the air as she first stared at her husband, trying to read his reaction. He sat almost motionless, trying to make sense of her confession. "I've been drinking, but not enough to justify my actions," she began quietly. "All I can think about is that I was too calm and let my guard down. I was around people I trusted. I drank just enough to feel at ease and allow myself to enter a situation that turned terribly wrong in a matter of seconds. I do not know how it happened, but I was in his arms before I realized it." "Whose hands?" her husband growled. "At Gil's," she replied peremptorily. "I'm sorry, Steve, but it was with Gil. He wanted me to look at his new office." She saw her husband flinch. She knew that he would gather as much information as possible before he reacted. "When we got there, he hugged me. I don't know, Steve. I can't explain it. He was always flirting, but that's what happens to all women. I probably trusted him. I thought the situation was harmless, and worst of all, I believed that I could always handle anything if something ever happened. Obviously, I was wrong. The next thing I remember, he was kissing me. Maybe it was because of the suddenness, or maybe I was just stunned, but I didn't resist." "You said you were drunk. Could someone have put something in your drink?" She shook her head sadly. "I wish I could say that I was drunk or drugged, but I can't. I should have just slapped him and walked away. Maybe if I had, I wouldn't have betrayed you and our family. Instead, it took less than 20 minutes to ruin everything." 20 minutes? Donna felt herself blushing. "He took me... No. I let him take me straight to his office. I slipped and fell off a cliff. Just one careless oversight. Maybe you shouldn't have come so close to the edge. It's not fair. I've been alone with Gil many times, and nothing even close to that has ever happened. That's what you say. I understand why it's hard for you to believe me now, but it really was a one-time mistake. If it had happened more than once, I'd be an even bigger fool if I came here and confessed, knowing it was a lie. Steve, I swear to you, it never occurred to me that Gil would ever physically molest me. And I would never have thought that my wife would give herself to another man like some dog in heat. Donna felt her heart stop. His reaction wasn't unexpected, but she prayed it wouldn't be so harsh. Slowly, she began to breathe again, realizing that her worst fears were becoming reality. You're right. I can't tell you how ashamed I am. After it happened, I went home and took a shower. I tried to wash away all traces of him, but I was still haunted by the memories of my infidelity. I think that answers another one of my questions, Steve grumbled. Which one? Without a condom. She shook her head and looked down. It was a mistake, Steve. I'm not trying to make this any less than a terrible betrayal, but it wasn't planned. There was no conscious thought. It all happened so fast that I didn't even have time to think. If I had done that, I wouldn't have done it. I went to the clinic and had a checkup earlier this week. I know I'm still on the pill, but I was so scared I had to make sure. So why did it take you so long to talk to me about this? Or weren't you going to do it at all? Donna took a deep breath and began. Answering your first question, I struggled with my guilt and fears. I was ashamed of myself, and I felt guilty for not having a clear reason why I did what I did. I was scared too. I was afraid that what I had done would destroy our family. My actions damaged our marriage, and I was trying to come to terms with the possibility that you would kick me out. As for whether I would ever tell you, I think I would. After all, I was trying to figure out how to talk to you about it tomorrow night. But I haven't decided anything since yesterday, and then quite recently something happened that made my confession necessary. What? Did he give you a sexually transmitted disease? No, the results showed that I am clean, at least physically. She looked at her husband with fear. His reaction to her confession was expected, but the way he would react to the next part scared her. I just got back from lunch with Gil. Preparing your next blunder, Steve growled. He called me, she replied quietly, ignoring his question, and said he needed to talk about what happened. I told him no, but he said there was more and we needed to meet. In the end, I agreed and met with him at Sanderson's. I planned to make him understand that it was a mistake and would never happen again. When I got there, I was the only one who was surprised, no, shocked. Steve, he tried to blackmail me. He was trying to turn me into a cheater for his company. Donna told her husband about what was said at their meeting. She recounted Gil's threats and his demand that she be free that evening to entertain his clients. Donna also shared her suspicions that she wasn't the first person Gil tried to blackmail. She watched with concern as he stoically gathered information. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and was silent for a few seconds. When he finally spoke, it was with a coldness that made her shudder. So you still have the photos he tried to blackmail you with? Yes, but I beg you not to look at them. It's one thing to know that your wife has betrayed you, and quite another to see her acting like a cheater. Please, Steve, don't look at them. They stared at each other in silence. Donna felt an overwhelming sadness when she saw his determination. She reluctantly handed him the envelope. Without looking at her, he opened it and began to study the photographs. He stopped at a photograph of her on her knees. Donna felt her face start to turn red with shame. Her husband's once impassive face was distorted by intense pain, which soon turned into anger. When did Gil say his clients were coming? Well, he wanted me to be free at 7. Well, if he sticks to his usual routine, he'll take them to the country club first and try to impress them. Donna disagreed and suspected that Gil would return to his office until his clients arrived. However, she had a very bad feeling, and she didn't say anything. I wanted to talk to you before contacting the police, she said as calmly as she could. Don't worry. Steve, please don't. He gave her a look that took her breath away. Now I understand why you asked for a gun, he said in a cold, dead voice. I still need to have a little heart-to-heart talk with my former best friend. He started to walk past her and walk away. She instinctively reached out to him. He roughly pushed her hand away. Get your hands off me, you dirty fucking cheater! She recoiled from his furious outburst and pressed her back against the wall. When Steve ran out of the office, A stunned Darlene, his assistant, watched in horror. "Oh my God, Donna!" Darlene screamed and rushed to the twisted body leaning against the wall. "What happened? I've never seen Steve like this before." Donna slowly gathered herself up and stood up. Looking into her friend's worried face, she whispered, "I heard him, Darlene. I have offended my husband very much." Sighing, she closed her eyes and grabbed onto something positive. "At least I have his gun so he doesn't do anything stupid." "His gun?" Darlene asked. "Which one is it? The big one he keeps in the desk or the one in the truck?" Donna looked at her blankly before the panic began to build. I thought that was all he had." "No, he has another one. He's brilliant, and my brother called him Sig or something like that. Damn, I do not know. For me, a gun is a gun." "Oh, Darlene, I need your help. Please call your brother. I'm afraid Steve might actually hurt someone." "Did you offend anyone?" "Oh my God, what happened?" Reluctantly, leaving out the graphic details, Donna told Darlene about her infidelity and Gil's blackmail. When Darlene asked if she had any evidence, she gave her an envelope with photos and told her that any other evidence would probably be found in Gil's office. She also mentioned her suspicions that the same thing had happened to others, including the Dahlgreens. Darlene left and made some calls. Then she returned to her unhappy friend. "I called my brother and he went to the country club to try to intercept Steve. I need to meet my sister-in-law and give her these photos. While I'm gone, why don't you lie down in Steve's office?" "No, I need to pick up the kids." "They are still at school in kindergarten." "I know, but I need to see them, Darlene. They will help me. Keep me on the ground. Donna, you can barely walk, let alone drive a car. I'll drop it off and then I can stop and pick up the kids. This shouldn't be a problem since I've done it before. Besides, you need to take a break and collect your thoughts. I wish I could tell you that the worst is over, but we both know that's not the case. Steve must be in utter agony to feel such rage. I'm not sure he can get through this." "But Donna, there is still hope. He loves you like no one I know. I do not know what will happen, but you need to think about how you can show him that your marriage is worth fighting for. I'm sorry I don't have any suggestions, but you need to come up with something, and quickly." Donna nodded, slowly returned to Steve's office and closed the door behind her. She heard the front door of the office close and realized that Darlene was on her way. She realized that her betrayal would soon become the property of the whole world. With a soft, sad sigh, she walked over to the small sofa and curled up on it. Her thoughts were spinning in her head, making it difficult to grab onto someone in particular. Finally, her gaze fell on the photo that was on Steve's desk. It was a picture of the two of them and the children when they went to the beach. She persuaded an elderly couple to capture this moment using their mobile phone. She remembered every child's face as they squealed with delight when she poured a bucket of water on their unsuspecting father. She was laughing so hard that she forgot to run away after her sudden attack, and Steve quickly grabbed her. He lifted her up as if she weighed nothing. She screamed when he acted like he was going to drop her. He paused and winked at her with a warm smile. She hugged him and gave him her plea for forgiveness, a smoldering kiss. All three of their children were moaning and choking. Donna smiled sadly at the memory. It was a cherished moment for them, and she couldn't help but wonder if their future awaited any more of them. "It's funny how the mind works," she said softly to herself. "I wonder why I didn't remember that the night I ruined my marriage." Her thoughts were rudely interrupted by the opening and slamming of the office door. She had just gotten up when Gil burst into Steve's office. He looked surprisingly calm and only slightly annoyed. "I thought Darlene would never leave. I was trying to catch you before you made a stupid mistake. But after I saw Steve run out of here in a complete frenzy, I'm pretty sure I was too late." "If you're asking if I told Steve, then you're right. You're late. You're a stupid fool," he said flatly. "You're right again," Donna replied calmly. "Of course I was stupid. I was stupid to let my guard down in the presence of my husband's supposed best friend. I was even more stupid for succumbing to my lust and ruining my marriage over something like that. So average." "Average, right?" He grinned. "I have photos that speak differently. Of course, not on average with how you felt about it. I admit I allowed myself to be dragged into this moment. I was a fool, but that was nothing compared to the absolute stupidity you showed when you tried to blackmail your best friend's wife into becoming your corporate cheater. Now it's just stupid." Gil's response was not what she expected when he smiled maliciously. "No, not one of my highlights, but in my defense I was trapped." Donna looked at him, puzzled. I just took the opportunity." So why did you write it down? Insurance, he said in a businesslike tone. Of course. Then I realized that you'd probably feel too guilty and end up confessing to Steve. But after a few days, you still haven't done it, so I thought I still had a chance to keep you from ruining both of us. I had to raise the stakes, sort of talk, to ensure your silence. After all, it was a calculated gamble. As the old saying goes, for a penny, for a pound. Now the question is, who we are. His cell phone interrupted him. As Donna answered him, she watched his smug face turn into a decidedly unhappy one. Damn it, he growled. When did he leave? He turned and stared at her. Damn, damn, damn. Bad news, I hope, she asked with a grin of her own. You stupid fool. Did you tell him that I was trying to blackmail you? Surely you didn't show him the photos. Donna nodded. Well, now you've really ruined everything. Shaking his head, Gil sat down heavily in Steve's office chair. Donna could see flashes of grotesque rage darkening his usually handsome face. Damn it, he muttered. Gil, just so you know, Donna said coldly, I've already called the sheriff. Gil grinned and stared at her. Blackmail? He snorted. It will be your word against mine, at least for a while. As for these photos, I wouldn't believe them too much. I could swear that we had an affair and that you knew I was making them. I just wanted to give you some souvenirs from our last escapade. The mementos you asked for, of course. This should confuse things long enough so that I can go back and make sure that I didn't miss deleting any evidence. Even if it doesn't work completely, it will legitimately muddy the waters enough to delay any arrests or charges. I've heard that South America is fine this time of year, but now I have a more serious problem. This call was from one of my friends at the country club. It looks like your husband was just looking for me there. While I have a good chance of detaining the authorities, your wrinkled, smug husband is a completely different matter. He may want to find me because I betrayed him, or he'll believe your tearful blackmail story. Either way, it won't end well. Gil grumbled, opening the drawer of the desk where Steve's gun had once been kept. Shaking his head, he sighed. No, it's not going to end well. Donna started to say something about Steve not having that gun, but froze when Gil pulled out his own gun. He checked it carefully and put it in the ready position with a loud click. He slowly placed it on the table. What? Donna whispered incredulously. It's called a Glock. No, this is crazy. What are you doing? A devoted, angry, eye for an eye type of husband is looking for me. What do you think will happen? My call said that Steve left the country club just before some deputy sheriff arrived. He'll probably go to my office first, but he'll come back here eventually. Hopefully he'll understand the reason, but we both know that's probably unlikely. Let's face it, our little transgression probably ruined his perfect little world. Please, Gil, don't do this. Just go away. Steve's not going to stop. And to be honest, I'm not going to look over my shoulder until I can get out of town. Who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky and I'll be able to get away from him a little bit. If the gun doesn't work, I'll have to threaten to harm your children. All I need to do is hold him for a day or two. Anyway, it's better to deal with it now. Donna carefully reached into her purse. With difficulty, she pulled out Steve's gun, pulled the hammer back, and tried to aim at Gil's chest. She struggled, but she couldn't stop her hands from shaking, and the gun was so heavy. At the sound of the cocked trigger, Gil's eyes widened, but then a sly, evil grin appeared on his face. Oh my God, he chuckled. What a big gun you have, baby. Get away from the gun, Donna squeaked, her voice betraying her. Go to hell, he chuckled, slowly reaching for his gun. I'm already there, Donna whispered, closing her eyes and pulling the trigger. There was an explosion and Steve's office became surreal. She winced at the sharp pain in her shoulder and her arm was partially numb. The huge pistol was lying on the floor next to her, where she had dropped it. Glancing at Steve's desk, she saw the huddled mass that was her husband's best friend. She couldn't see his face, but a dark pool of blood began to gather under him. Through the ringing in her ears, she thought she could hear a siren. Donna staggered back against the wall and slowly slid to the floor. She looked at the motionless body and realized that now everything was going to change. Steve, she whispered, I love you. I'm so sorry. Please find a way to forgive me. In fact, it was just one blunder. For some, it was a monumental act of betrayal. For others, it was a sad human mistake, but not the destruction of a marriage. No matter how you look at it, in the end, you will have to pay a price for it, a life-changing price, because it requires victims. Donna sighed, making herself comfortable on the bench. She looked at her bright orange prison clothes and snorted. Orange is the new black. Yes, that's right. She looked at her husband, who was looking at her through the glass. He looked exhausted, but he was still handsome. She prayed that someday she would feel his arms around her again. She reminded herself not to get too hopeful, as there was still a chance he would file for divorce. The last few months had been hell, not only for her, but also for him and their family. The media circus and the trial have thrown them into the public eye. Treason, blackmail, and a Smith & Wesson .44 Magnum gave the internet more than enough to spend a day in the field at their expense. There were countless photos of her spreading with the memes, "Come on, make my day," "Are you lucky?" and "Dirty Donna." If she was surprised by the social chaos created by her blunder, then she was stunned by the way the trial went. Her lawyer said it best at the beginning of the fiasco. It probably would have been better if she had killed Gil. No, Gil is not dead. There are many reasons why a person does not close his eyes when firing a pistol. The target is obvious, and yet when Donna fired, she managed to hit Gil in the shoulder. A bullet of this caliber left a big hole. Although he did not die from the first shot, he almost bled out before help arrived. With a serious wound, Gil ended up in the hospital and was unable to carry out his escape plan. He was arrested before he was cured. Regardless of whether he was trying to play some kind of legal game or just taking revenge, his testimony contradicted Donna's testimony so sharply that an overly aggressive prosecutor pursued both Gil and Donna. They initially claimed that they acted in self-defense and in the heat of passion, but things were unclear when they could not prove that Gil reached for the gun because of his contradictory testimony. What was provable was that Gil didn't have a gun in his hand when she shot him. She didn't know which was crazier, the legal system, or that anyone expected her to be fair. These first few weeks were full of dark legal twists and accusations. Karma began to balance out as more and more evidence of Gil's past blackmail emerged, and public opinion quickly gained ground for Donna. It also worked in her favor that the gun was not considered semi-automatic, which further reduced the potential maximum sentence. The district attorney, knowing that he would soon be re-elected, quickly offered a deal. In the end, she pleaded guilty to a lesser crime. It still meant a maximum term of several years, so it wasn't ideal, but it could have been a lot worse. The judge took several things into account when he eventually sentenced her to county jail, which is usually reserved for sentences of up to a year. Donna's lawyer was confident that she would be released early and would probably serve only 6 months. "Justice is not just blind," Donna whispered. "She's a psychopath and she has PMS." "What?" Donna snorted sarcastically. "I said I have to learn not to talk to myself," she replied with a slight smile. He smiled back. "Sometimes it's the only way to know what you're thinking." "Steve," she whispered, staring intently into his face, "all you have to do is ask. I will try to be as honest as possible." "I know," he said softly. They both knew. There were countless conversations before she was sentenced. Each of them was brutally honest and painful and always ended the same way. Donna was depressed and Steve was upset and angry. Donna had to admit that she was actually relieved when she began serving her sentence, as it relieved her of the tension that permeated her home and marriage. She watched him squirm before he stammered out his first question. "So, how are you doing?" "Just great," she snorted. "Just yesterday, the girls and I were lying by the pool and sunbathing." "That's not what I meant," he replied with a smile. She almost laughed at the thought of her and the other prisoners lounging around the pool. Her prison was considered one of the best in the state, that is, the cleanest and least violent, but it would never be mistaken for a resort. "I know, I was trying to lighten the mood a bit." She smiled at him gently. Her love for him was still strong, although her current living conditions made their relationship very strained. "I'm all right. Everything has become much better. I'm hiding and trying to keep to myself. Of course, being around Mia helps." Donna studied her husband, waiting for some kind of reaction, even though she knew he wouldn't show it. She made similar statements every time he visited her. His lack of reaction didn't stop her from believing that he had a hand in her current situation. Her first few weeks here were very difficult. There were nights when she silently fought back tears, but never where someone could see or hear. She couldn't completely hide her appearance, and it attracted unwanted attention. Shortly after she mentioned this to Steve, she met Mia. Mia was an intimidating 45-year-old obese, heavily tattooed mixed-race woman who was serving the last part of her sentence after being transferred from a medium-security state prison. Without any discussion, Mia became friends with her, and it became known that Donna was with her. To Donna's surprise, all this meant that Mia demanded that she behave submissively and keep her mouth shut about their relationship. One day she tried to subtly broach the subject with Mia, but only once. Mia's outburst still made Donna nervous. "Damn it, Snow White, why the hell do you want to ruin everything by sticking your nose where it doesn't belong? Just keep your fucking mouth shut and you'll get out of here safe and sound. Do you understand?" Donna understood, but now she was even more sure that Steve was involved. However, he denied it, and she certainly wasn't going to discuss it with Mia again. "How are the children?" "It's all right. I'm adjusting a little. I have some drawings that I can bring if you want." "No, I've already told you that I don't need anything from them while I'm here. Steve, it's too hard for me to keep being reminded of what I'm missing. Please just tell them how much I love them and miss them." "They miss you." "I miss them too, but if I break down here, it will be very bad for me. Please don't ever bring them here, Steve. It's enough that my husband and parents see me like this." Donna leaned back in her chair and sighed. When she began her incarceration, her mother moved in with Steve and the children to help. The first week she was allowed to visit her, Steve and her parents were there. After that, Steve and her mother alternated on visiting days. "Mom seems to be feeling better." "I'm glad to hear that. She helped me a lot." "You know, she was afraid that you would divorce me while I was here and get full custody of the children, and then you'll leave and she'll never see her grandchildren again." Steve grimaced and shook his head. "I told you both I wouldn't do it. Currently, there will be no such solutions. We'll need to discuss this after you're released." "What if I'm not released sooner?" "There is no guarantee that this will happen. Then we'll cross this bridge when we get to it. Look, Donna, I'm trying to be as fair as I can to all of this, even after what you've done. With him, I know you were trying to protect me from being in a place like this for the rest of my life. Although sometimes I wonder why. Why did you go to such an extreme?" "Steve," she replied softly, "you know why." "Yes," he nodded, "but sometimes I need to hear it again." She reminded herself that this was a positive thing. This meant that her husband was focusing on her actions after her blunder, and not on the betrayal itself. It gave her reason to hope. "I'm sorry," he said, interrupting her thoughts. "I'm not going to make you go through this again." "No, it's all right. I know it was hard for you not to have a clear reason why I slipped, but I know exactly why I shot Gil. Steve, I love you, even if my actions that night at the party didn't show it. When Gil pulled out his gun, I saw my future flash before my eyes. I saw how I tried to explain to our children why their dad couldn't come home because he was in prison, and if Gil had shot you instead—" Her voice faltered and she quietly pulled herself together before continuing. "I saw life without you and couldn't accept it. I was the reason for this, and I needed to make sure that you and our family didn't suffer even more because of my failures. I let you down once, and I wasn't going to let you down again. The only thing I really regret, other than the miss, is that I closed my eyes when I shot him." "Well, despite that, it turned out pretty well," her husband chuckled. "Gil probably wishes you'd killed him now too." "I was afraid the judge would agree with his defense," Donna said softly, "and declare him a sociopath. Fortunately, he didn't do it, although they definitely showed that he had several sociopathic tendencies. I mean, what the hell?" Steve shook his head. "What was he even thinking about?" "I have no idea," Donna replied. "Are you blackmailing women you know to become your corporate cheaters? It's just asking to get caught. I guess it was the excitement of beating the odds that prompted him to do something so stupid. Of course, he was lucky that he had never traveled to Las Vegas." Her husband looked at her questioningly. Donna gave him a sly smile in return. "He thought I would accept his blackmail. He was wrong. He didn't think I'd tell you everything. Again, he was wrong. He was also mistaken in believing that he would be able to leave the area quickly enough to avoid the police. With such thoughts and luck, he would probably end up in a shallow grave somewhere in the desert if he went to Las Vegas." They both laughed, but then the awkward silence returned. "You know," she said softly, "the fact that he had some of these tendencies explains some things." "What is it?" "Sociopaths are experienced liars. That would explain how he managed to fool us and all our friends. It's not an excuse, Steve, but it was a factor in all of this. He deceived us all, but the worst thing was my stupidity." Steve nodded slowly in agreement. "So," Donna said carefully, "did my stupidity destroy us?" Donna, you know where we are with this. I know, but like you, I need to hear it sometimes too. Steve shifted uncomfortably on the bench. First of all, I love you. I'll probably love you for the rest of my life. And I've already told you that I've forgiven you. I will not carry such anger and bitterness in me. It's like poison. But Donna, that doesn't mean we're okay. You hurt me, worse than ever before. I know, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Steve. I wish I could take back my actions, but I can't. She knew this conversation was going to be difficult. It has always been so. Still, he needed to talk, and she needed to listen. The words he would say would hurt, and seeing what her infidelity had done to him would be torture. But it was necessary. If he doesn't, it could fester and poison any chance of their marriage going through with it. I'm still struggling with all this, Donna. Your betrayal, Gil's betrayal. I'm not sure I would have killed him, but I definitely planned to hurt him that day. If he pulled out a gun and threatened our children, I can't say I wouldn't have shot him. No matter how it all started, he said softly, you sacrificed yourself for me. That alone gives you the right not to worry about the divorce while you're here. They sat and stared at each other for a few awkward moments before Donna spoke. Mom says Connie still spends a lot of time at the house. Steve nodded. I know it's about your mother, but I can't just send her away. Connie is really lost right now, Donna. When everything became known about Gila, almost everyone we know shunned her. She was all alone. Kind of like me. Donna replied quietly, unable to hide her fear and jealousy. Yes, her husband sighed. But she didn't do anything to deserve it. She suspected Gil was having affairs, but she didn't know about the blackmail. Sue Dahlgreen said Gil even bragged that his wife didn't know anything about this aspect. However, she blames herself for turning a blind eye to Gil's deception. She feels that if she hadn't done it, maybe all this could have been prevented. I seriously doubt it. Connie was an even bigger trophy wife than any of us suspected. I was told that she was probably a so-called hidden submissive. Gil was completely in control of their marriage when he wasn't in public. Donna nodded as it matched some of the things she now suspected about Gil and Connie. She stared at her husband in silence, trying to formulate the question she was afraid to ask. No, Steve said softly, interrupting her thoughts. Nothing has happened and nothing will happen. Some people would think, she began softly, you'd be justified. Bullshit, Steve snorted. The strength of his response surprised her and caught the attention of one of the guards. After the warning, Steve calmly continued. Yes, there were several possibilities, and Connie is definitely a very beautiful woman, but I couldn't do that to her. She was my best friend's wife, and even though he turned out to be a piece of shit, she doesn't deserve to be used. If I did, I would take advantage of her, playing on her guilt and fears. This is something that will change me in some way. I can turn into someone I don't like. No matter what happens between us, I have to keep trying to be the kind of person I want to be. Donna, I'm trying to do the right thing. I can't just throw away our last 15 years, and I understand what you've done to try to make things better. And with the fact that you're here, I recognize your sacrifice. But Donna, I can't forget what you did. I'm still struggling with how you could just forget about me and our love. Donna started to say something, but Steve cut her off. You say you love me, but I have to question it. Even if it's true, is it the same love that allowed you to change? Is this the same love that couldn't stop you from spreading your legs for another man in the heat of the moment? Donna, you're a beautiful woman, and I know that guys will keep hitting on you. What happens when the next handsome stud decides he wants you? Are you going to get hit by some Martian cheating Ray and just jump into bed with him? His words stung, and Donna barely restrained a sharp response. Her anger wasn't directed at him. It was caused by the absurdity of her current situation. She betrayed her marriage. She took full responsibility for it. But it was something that happened to countless spouses over the centuries. In her case, everything went like a snowball. She cheated, but then the alleged friend she was cheating with tried to blackmail her. When she confessed to her husband, things got even stranger and turned into some kind of Wild West show in which everyone seemed to have guns. Then, to top it all off, she shot Gil to protect her family. But since he didn't actually have a gun in his hand, now she was in prison, protected by a woman who had scared the hell out of her while her marriage was on life support. It didn't just snowball. It was a damn avalanche. She felt as if that avalanche had thrown her off a cliff, and now her husband was the only one who kept her on the safety line in her previous life. This feeling of helplessness infuriated her. Donna took a deep breath, fighting her disappointment. Fair or not, it was the way it was. Not everything was lost, so there was still hope. There was still something to fight for. Her marriage and family were two of those things. She knew that Steve still loved her. It was damaged, probably crippled for life, but it was still there. He also forgave her. She was grateful for that, but she knew what it really meant. It was a conscious choice that Steve had to make repeatedly. Someday it would just be an afterthought, but now it was an everyday occurrence. She also knew that although her blunder had been forgiven, the memory of it would never completely disappear. The scars will remain forever. Donna sighed to herself. She realized that the biggest obstacle facing them now was simple: trust. Her actions destroyed one of the key foundations on which their marriage was built. Now there was a chasm where there had once been solid rock. Trust can be restored, but it will never be the same as before. The healing will be long and very painful. Was it worth it? Was their marriage worth the pain, anger, and hard work that now awaited them in the future? She believed it and hoped Steve felt the same way. She also knew that the war that was raging in her husband was not in his heart, but in his mind. The question of whether she would ever cheat on him again was the focus of attention. It was a battle of logic against faith and fear. It was a battle she was losing. She had plenty of time to think about it. Time to think was something in abundance for someone who was in prison. One of the key points was that she didn't have a good reason for her blunder. She knew it was something that was tearing her husband's mind apart. His comment about the Martian cheater Ray confirmed this. She knew she would have to logically give Steve something that wouldn't offend his reasoning. The argument, "If you don't know why something happened, how can you protect yourself from it?" was something that would not be overcome easily or quickly. However, this had to be dealt with, and immediately. Steve needed something he could logically grasp onto to help him overcome lingering doubts. Gathering her thoughts, she continued to state her case. "Steve," she began softly, "you asked how you could be sure this would never happen again. The answer, unfortunately, is that you can't. I wish there was something I could do or say that could assure you that I will never fall again, but you will never be completely sure." To be fair, no one can ever be 100% sure that they or someone they love won't fall. However, I can honestly tell you that the chances of me falling before I slipped were greater than they are now. I do not know about you. Please let me explain. I know a lot of people say that once a cheater is always a cheater, but that's not really true. It's like saying that a teenager who shoplifts will always be a thief, or a student who continues to drink in college will be a drunk for the rest of his life. I understand that once someone has cheated, it's easier to cheat a second time and even easier the third time. But Steve, people change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I hope we all learn from our mistakes, but many of us don't. However, things change just as people's circumstances change. That's why no one can be fully insured. That's why I can honestly tell you that I'll have even less chance of slipping again. She saw her husband struggling with this logic, but was grateful that he allowed her to explain his thoughts. "Steve, we've both been betrayed. I say both of us because you trusted him as a good friend, and I foolishly believed that I was safe. We were both wrong. We were both naive. We were like those who live in a gated community and believe they are safe from crime. Are they safer? Sure, but they don't have immunity. Unfortunately, we forgot about it. As a result, we were deceived by someone from our community. Steve, Gil got me because I was arrogant and careless. I trusted him, myself, and the situation, and let him stand behind my protection. There will never be such a level of trust again. Unfortunately, it will also limit my trust in anyone else. I doubt that I will ever be able to fully trust any of our friends again. Oh, I will trust them enough to interact with them, even sometimes share some things, but it will never be the way it was. It's like a home security system that will never let anyone get that close again. But the home security system is only good against threats outside the home. I know I ruined our marriage, and now you don't trust me. You don't have to. I showed that I could fall. I let us down in a way none of us expected. And now, she continued calmly, this lack of trust will help make sure it doesn't happen again. You will naturally be more suspicious, and I will be even more careful. I will never be able to trust myself because I will always know that if circumstances go wrong, I may fall. But Steve, I believe that over time I will be able to regain some of that trust. It will never be the same again, but it can still be good. I pray that the love you still feel for me, along with our dedication to our children, will allow you to give me a chance to start winning your trust again. I know it's selfish, but I want a chance to help heal some of the wounds I've caused. I love you, and I can promise that I will do everything I can to help heal our family." Steve sat quietly, thinking about what she had said. "Thank you," he finally said softly. "It helps, but I need to accept what you just said and think about it. I love you too, Donna, but I'm not sure I can get over it. I know that our friends and family have their own opinions about what I should do. I'm not trying to sound smug, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to look at myself in the mirror and live with my choices." "And if you can't?" Donna whispered. Steve stared at her in silence for a few moments. She could see the myriad emotions playing on his face. "I don't know. I think we'll have to face it if that happens." The following months were difficult, but Donna quickly settled into a routine. She had too much time to think. It was both a blessing and a curse. Her fears were somewhat dispelled when her mother informed her that Connie had returned to the East Coast. Donna tried to keep as inconspicuous as possible and was rewarded by being left alone. She kept her mouth closed, her ears open, and stayed in Mia's shadow. She soon gathered enough information to guess the reason for Mia's unexpected generosity. Mia's 2 daughters and grandchildren were accepted into a program that relocated them from the slums they lived in to a decent suburb and a small renovated house. It doesn't take a genius to realize that the design of the mechs was an integral part of this. It was a project their business had been involved in before. Obviously, Steve pulled some strings to make Mia's family the recipient of this project. Donna doubted he'd done anything illegal, but she figured there were reasons Steve would have thought it best if there weren't a lot of questions. She decided to just forget about it. Even though her lawyer assured her that she would only spend 6 months behind bars, the reality was that early release was not a given, and even when granted, it rarely happened at the expected time. In the end, it happened after Donna had served 10 months. Soon after Donna heard about her impending release, she began to really struggle with the demons haunting her thoughts about the future. They were strong and ruthless, feeding off her fears about marriage. Steve was true to his word, and there was no talk of divorce, but soon he would have to face this mountain. Donna had countless hours to come up with a plan to convince Steve to try to save their marriage. She knew that counseling should be a part of it, but she also knew that Steve hadn't really thought much about the idea. As a result, both joy and fear filled her when she was released. No wonder Steve was there to pick her up. Their first uncontrolled hug in 10 months was awkward at best. They both tried their best to look into each other's eyes. She quickly got into the car, fighting her growing fears. Steve called her parents to tell them they were heading home and handed her a thick manila envelope. Donna almost panicked before she realized that instead of the divorce papers she was afraid of, there were letters and drawings from the children. Donna struggled with her overwhelming emotions. Months of suppressing all feelings allowed her to read every letter and study every drawing without breaking down. The rest of the way home was spent in eerie silence and not comfortable. It was interrupted only by brief bursts of conversation, mostly Steve telling her about the kids. From time to time, she glanced at her husband, trying to read his thoughts and feelings. There were so many emotions on his face that it was impossible to read, and Donna calmly accepted the fact that he was as confused as she was about how to proceed. As they pulled into the driveway, Donna saw a small crowd in her front yard. She recognized her parents and friends among the greeters. Her heart started beating faster when she read the Welcome Home banner that was hung on her porch. As soon as she got out of the car, 3 small bodies attacked her, who clung tightly to her. Although she tried to fight it, tears flowed down her face. Months of conditioning collapsed. All it took was 3 little voices shouting that word, "Mommy." Over the next few minutes, Donna was hugged and kissed by many well-wishers, while her children crowded around her. She couldn't help but constantly touch each child and gently stroke his hair. Their world was turned upside down, as was the world of their parents. She vowed to herself that their family would be her top priority. She vowed to fight for her marriage with everything she has, and somehow provide them all with a safe family life. She was so lost in her thoughts that he surprised her. He stepped back to let her be with their children and greet her well-wishers. Now she felt his presence before she felt his gentle touch on her shoulders. His warm breath on the back of her neck sent chills all over her body. He bent down to speak the words for her ears only. Everything inside Donna screamed for her to turn around and throw herself into his arms to confess her love and beg him to at least try to save their marriage. Her heart almost stopped when she finally realized what he was whispering. I know it was difficult, and the road ahead will not be much easier. I don't like it, but I understand that we will need outside help. I'd like to try to arrange this marriage if you still want to. Donna turned and looked at him in a daze. She could feel her heart filling with the real hope that had been lost for so long. She nodded silently, and her eyes filled with a new wave of tears again. I love you, Donna, he said softly. Welcome home, my wife. Almost a year of guilt, pain, and torment has burst to the surface. Her husband's arms held her securely, and the children's arms wrapped around her waist and legs, and she released him. She buried her face in his chest and cried. Donna Bellows was finally here. Home.